In this video, I'm going to talk about creating curves using some of the spline functions. So if you click on the curve tab, there's a panel called spline. We're going to make 3 separate splines. The first one is going to be a polyline. I'm going to expand the list here by clicking on this little arrow, and I'm going to choose the polyline tool. Now we have some points that we created previously. One of them is using a panel basically to just input text as the X, Y, and Z coordinate. The other one is using the sliders. So when you're creating a vector, and we're going to create a polyline, when you create a polyline and it has multiple points, we're going to have basically 3 segments connecting 4 points. They need to be in order. So I'm going to click on this one. This one right now is further away. It's going to be the last one. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to move this down. So my first one will be there. My second one is going to be here. All right. And I'll move this closer. So we're going to add a couple more points. And as you can see, or as you will see, you can mix points defined by sliders and points defined by panels like this one. So for example, I could say Control C, Control V, and the next one I make could be defined by the sliders. Right now, those 2 points are on top of one another, but if I shift them over here, you can see that there are 2 points there. Now, in this case, I want to move one of the points sort of further over here. So what I'm going to do for my X coordinate is I'm going to increase the range here. So we'll just make it a kind of a large number, a larger number at least. Click on the check mark and say OK. And so that's going to allow me to shift the 3rd point over a little bit further. And, I'll make another copy of this one instead. And I'll put it down here. And for this one, we'll increase this value to maybe like 50 and say, okay, right? So maybe I'll bring this one back a little bit. Now, yours don't have to be the same numbers, but basically the idea is to kind of get used to manipulating them. All right, so we are ready to start attaching them to form this polyline. So I'm going to take the first one and connect it in to the vertex kind of port here. And then if I try to connect the second one, what's going to happen is the first one will be disconnected. So if I need to connect multiple ones, I have to hold down the Shift key, but I need to do them in the proper sequence. So I'm going to disconnect this one by holding down the Control key and bringing it back. Okay, so we'll start over. First one, hold down the Shift key. Second one, hold down the Shift key. Third one, and the 4th one. So as you can see, there's now a 3-segment polyline constructed. Okay, and you still have the ability to kind of move these points around, whether you do it in the text panel here or using the sliders in this case. Okay. So let's see here for the second one. Let's make this a little smaller. Okay. So the next type of curve that we're going to make is also on the spline, under the spline panel. And it is through interpolation. So I'm going to click on that one and I'm going to bring it down here. Now this one, instead of using exclusively Grasshopper to kind of place these points, I'm going to place points directly into Rhino. Okay, so maybe what we'll do for this part is use the top view to sort of set the points. So as you have done previously, to input objects into Rhino, you go through the command line. And I'll pick a point here, and I'll repeat it, and here, and here, and here. Now I have 4 points drawn in Rhino, and I'm now going to connect them together using this interpolate tool in Rhino. All right, now I'm going to use a point to do this. So while I'm in Grasshopper, I'm going to type in point, and it's going to create a point container. Okay, now I can take that and right click on it and set it to one of the points that I just made. So I'll click on set one point, and I'm going to pick that one. Right, so now when I click on point, it's green and it's associated with that point. Right, and I can do the same thing for the other points. I'm going to make 4 copies, or 3 copies, and I'm going to right click, set one point value, and tie it to the next point. Right click, set one point, tie it to the next point. Right click, set one point, tie it to the point. And as I had done with the previous polyline, I'm going to start connecting them in. Now this is red because it doesn't have a second point to work off of. Let's hold down Shift and start connecting them. And now you'll see that it's starting to connect these points. Okay. All right, now what's happening here is it's generating these curves, and they are passing directly through the points. Another thing that you'll notice about this that's a little bit different is that when I click on them, the way that I can manipulate them is to move the gumball in Rhino. So instead of controlling these in Grasshopper, I am shifting them in different directions directly in Rhino. All right, the next one we're going to make is also under the spline panel here, and it is a different type of curve. It's not through this process of interpolation. It is something called a NURBS curve. So I'm going to put that down here. And like I did with, and I could have constructed these points the same way that the polyline one was done, but just to sort of illustrate some different ways of doing this, I'm going to put, again, 4 points. And the same way that I used the point tool for the prior one, I'm going to type in point and place this here. And instead of doing 4 separate points, I am going to set multiple points. So I'm back in Rhino, and I'm going to pick them in the order that I want the curve to be. Press enter. And when I click on this one, you can see all 4 of them illuminate, and I can connect them to the NURBS curve param. Right, now same thing goes with this one. Since these points were created in Rhino, I can sort of manipulate them. One thing you'll notice about this curve, it's a little different than the interpolation type of curve. I still have the ability to control the shape of the curve, but the curve is not passing through the points. Okay, so there may be one reason or other why you want to use the different types of curves, and there's a bunch more in here that you could experiment with, but these are our 3 possibilities for working with splines. One last thing about this file. What we've done in the past here, and I'll do this now for this one, is we save the document in Grasshopper, and it's going to retain all of this script. But this particular Grasshopper file now has an association with this Rhino file. So if I want to be able to, open up this, see these curves and continue to manipulate them, I actually need to save the Rhino file as well. So I'm going to save it as, and I'll give it the same name, but it will be a Rhino file. And that way, if I wanted to make changes to the shapes of these curves, I would have to open up both the Rhino file and the Grasshopper file. Okay, so I've gone ahead and named my file, and so now I have the two, and they've both been saved.